Picture this. You're from Western Canada, Alberta in particular. Trudeau is in power and things are bad. Unemployment is high, inflation is high, national debt is high, our energy sector is being stifled. You're paying a ridiculous amount in equalization and your province has no real voice in Confederation. Western provinces are seriously contemplating secession from Canada. It sounds like I'm talking about today, doesn't it? And I very well could be, because all of these things are happening right here and now, but I'm not. I'm talking about Alberta in the early 80s when Pierre Elliott Trudeau was our Prime Minister. Trudeau mania was sweeping the eastern part of the country, but out west, provinces held no love for the Prime Minister, so addicted to the power associated with that role that he held our economies hostage with an iron fist. A few months ago, I came across this book, Confederation Betrayed, The Case Against Trudeau's Canada by George Woodcock. And when I finally sat down to read it, I had to keep reminding myself that this was written 40 years ago, not today. So much of the same sentiments of Western alienation and frustration of the Trudeau past applies to the reign of the Trudeau present. That anger and frustration are still very much there, as we clearly see with the rise of the separatist movement and the Buffalo Declaration. In this book, we get a real glimpse of the sense of alienation the Western provinces felt from the central government, hell-bent on crushing us under Trudeau's will. And how could we stop them? Liberals made sure that they were all-powerful and could go unchallenged thanks to implementing legislation that made the opposition virtually helpless to stop them. But how did this all come to be? Did our forefathers intend for the Western provinces to simply be colonies to feed the Ottawa machine? They didn't. Their original goal was to form a true confederation where each province was to be an autonomous region, where they had control over their freedoms, economies, and natural resources. Canada was supposed to be flexible, a country where power was going to be mutual between the provincial governments and the federal government, a true confederation. That was the dream, but like all dreams, we eventually have to wake up and face reality. Canada of yesterday, and more so today, is not what our forefathers had dreamt for us. What we had in 1981 and today is government obsessed with power. No province had or has an equal say, and we have a federal government that won't even look at the side of the provinces. The members of parliament that we, the people, have elected, and the members of opposition are simply just an irritant that the Liberals know can be bullied into submission. What we had under Pierre Trudeau and what we now have under Justin Trudeau is a federal government intent on turning Canada into a nation state where Western provinces will pay for the entire country. With the structure of the federal government and the British North America Act, Ottawa holds control over every aspect of our political and economic lives. It's national domination. The federal government loved the British North America Act because it gave them total power over the provinces, and power is the most coveted thing to not just a Liberal but to a Trudeau. And what's the best way to control the provinces? Control their economies and then heavily regulate and tax their natural resource revenues so the majority of the money goes to Ottawa. They then fill their pockets and give to the favored provinces who refuse to develop their own resources in a warped Robin Hood take from the rich and give to the poor scheme. This only adds fuel to the fire of Western alienation, and to give Pierre Trudeau ultimate power, he would pit the provinces against each other in some sort of twisted game. By purposely provoking the provinces so there is no cooperation, he would appear as the voice of reason and the level-headed one in Confederation, much like we've seen his son Justin do. It's a smart strategy when you think about it, an arrogant and vindictive one, but smart nonetheless. You see, Pierre Trudeau saw himself as the man whose destiny was to mold Canada to his will, consequences and national unity be damned. In an effort to try to gain some autonomy, provincial premiers tried to propose replacing the Senate with some sort of institution that would give the provinces an equal say, and even would give them veto power over federal legislation. We all know that the Senate has never been able to properly represent the needs of the provinces or stop the federal government from implementing legislation that infringes on our rights and interests. Naturally, Trudeau refused this proposal, stating that it wouldn't contain any federal appointees. So in other words, Trudeau wouldn't be able to have full control, and that was something he could never allow. This is why learning about our history is so very important, because if we don't listen to the lessons of our past, they will become the reality of our present and our future. Unfortunately, we are learning that lesson the hard way right now. And I had to keep reminding myself that the book I'm basing all of this on was written 40 years ago, because the sentiment of the Trudeau past translate to the Trudeau of our present. I have to wonder if those 4 Conservative MPs who wrote the Buffalo Declaration read Confederation Betrayed as well. The feelings are the same, and the suggestions they have are all mentioned in this book, as well as the Trudeau described is so similar it's almost hard to tell the difference between Pierre and Justin. Where does this all leave us? There are more options than just walking away from Canada. Firstly, we could sit back and simply accept that this is just how things are going to be in Canada. No improvements, just more abuse, exploitation, and domination from Justin Trudeau. Any autonomy or economic freedom will just be eroded away until all the provinces are simply fodder for Ottawa. Another thing we could do is push for a true confederation where each and every province has an equal voice in Canada. No more pitting province against province, no more pillaging one province to benefit another, but under a power-hungry Trudeau who is so much like his father, this would never be allowed. The final option is separation, and even back in 1981, those feelings of Western alienation were so strong it was being considered. Former BC Premier John Oliver said in 1921, "I have never advocated separation, but if the grossly unjust treatment Western Canada is subjected to in favor of Eastern interests is to be continued indefinitely, then I do not want to call myself Canadian." Alberta has paid its dues. We've worked hard not just for our province, but for the entire country. Many believe that we would be better off on our own, but would it make sense to be a country within a country? What if we held a referendum to secede? Ottawa says no and the people rise up. You can't expect Trudeau to let any province go without a fight, and we'd need Ottawa's permission. Well, if those pushing for separation decide to then fight their way out, Trudeau could implement the War Measures Act. This means any insurrection would be dealt with by the military and we could lose all of our civil rights. It's been done before in Quebec's October crisis of 1970. Some groups are pushing to join the United States, and in some ways it makes a lot of sense, but it does come with its own set of flaws and challenges. Even in 1981, this option was very quickly dismissed, mainly due to the fact of not wanting to trade Ottawa for Washington. We don't absolutely need to leave Canada. What we need is to be treated fairly. If Ottawa were to treat us as equal and legitimate partners where we're allowed to thrive, a lot of this alienation would be alleviated. If Justin Trudeau would simply listen to our concerns, and I mean really listen, giving us that autonomy we are so desperate for, he could convince us to stay. But to do that, Trudeau would have to loosen his grip on all that power he's so enamored with, that same power his father refused to let go of. Statement like father, like son very much applies to Pierre and Justin, but their style of holding that iron grip of power is very different. Pierre boldly and factually told Alberta we didn't matter. He was the bully who told us to our faces exactly how much damage he was going to inflict on Western provinces. Justin Trudeau is more like a snake in the grass. You don't know what exactly he's going to do, but you know damn well it's going to hurt when he bites you. He is the true python of prime ministers, squeezing Alberta until there is nothing left. Seen this the entirety of his rule with Bills C-69, C-48, the carbon tax, and more recently his lack of action on the Shutdown Canada blockade movement. He's been pushing to turn Canada into a post-nation state with no core identity, no energy sector, and if he pushes hard enough, no Alberta. George Woodcock foresaw a Canada of repression and conflict under a centralist liberal Canada that will become drab, grey, and difficult for all Canadians. If only he knew just how right he would be.